There's not going to be some struggle. I'm not saying that you might even lose a battle or two. But I'm telling you, as long as you trust God and as long as you walk in relationship with Him, you cannot lose the war. You cannot lose the war. Because God is a mighty warrior, a victorious warrior. He wins no matter what. You might have bought the lie that the battle between God and the devil is some sort of even-steven competition. But it's not. God's the creator. Satan's the created. You might have bought into the deception that somehow the sin in your life is greater than God's grace to overcome. But it's not. Because God is the creator and you are the created. He is the righteous one, and sin is but the darkness that light drives out. There is no competition. Judah, understand, I am the victorious warrior. Let me ask you this. Consider just for a moment. What might it mean to a person's life if they understood that God was the winner, the victorious warrior? What might it mean to their life? What might it mean to your life if you understood that God always wins? Because it doesn't make a licking bit of difference if you walk out of here and go, you know what, according to Pastor Jim, according to Zephaniah, according to this passage here, that God wins, that He's the victorious warrior. It doesn't make a licking bit of difference if you can answer that question. Call you up on Wednesday. Listen, just taking a quick survey, what was the sermon about Sunday? You know, most people, if I were to do that, would say I don't remember. That's okay. Somebody caught me a couple of weeks ago. My wife did. She was sick. She was out of church. She goes, "What'd you preach about today?" And I went, "I don't remember." It doesn't make a licking bit of difference if you can remember. What matters is, has it impacted your life? Has something come forth that has affected your relationship with God? Because God's not going to ask you a quiz test to get into heaven. He's going to ask if you have a relationship with me. He didn't ask them. He didn't tell them. He didn't say, guys, you know what? You've broken 7 of the 10 or 8 of the 10 or 9 of the 10 or all 10 of the commandments. He didn't say that. He says, you've broken covenant. You've broken relationship with me. So consider, what would be the ramifications for your life? What would be the ramifications for my life if we accepted the fact that God is a victorious warrior? What impact might that have? God answers that question right here. Take a look at the latter part of verse 17. He will exult over you with joy. He will be quiet in His love. He will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. You notice the first thing God says after saying, I win, is He talks about His benefit. He says, I get to look over you and exult with joy. You know what this looks like? That's my boy. Check him out. You ever done that, Papa? Kid scores a touchdown, and you lean over some guy you don't know, you wouldn't talk to. If it was the best day in the world, and you nudge him, that's my boy. That's my boy. You know, it's kind of the opposite of when your kid does something, you go, I can't believe that's not my child. Mama, that's your boy. And they do something right, and they go, that's my boy. That's what God's talking about. He says, I don't just look at you with joy, I'm proud of you. For God to be proud? Not only that, He says, He will be quiet in His love. When are parents not quiet in their love? Why do we discipline our children? Because we hate them. Because we love them. So we harangue them, we harp on them, we talk to them. Of course, our children hear, wah, 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 wah. But we do it because we love them. Right? When they walk in obedience and righteousness, we're quiet in our love. There's nothing to be said, right? Other than, that's my boy. Then he says, and he will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. You ever think that God sits in his throne in heaven and looks at you and calls over Moses or Elijah or Adam and says, check out Ken. Check out Ken. Wow, yeah, go Ken. You ever think he does that? You know how the book of Jonah opens up? Remember how the book of Jonah opens up? When Satan came before God to accuse the brethren, what did God say to Satan? Have you thought about Jonah? Have you checked out Jonah? Jonah's my boy, and Jonah does what is right, walking in righteousness. He is rejoicing over him with shouts of joy. One of the benefits of realizing that God always wins and walking in relationship with him in light of that is the fact that you and I have peace with God. We don't have to worry, oh my gosh, what's he going to do today? Is he going to catch me? What if he finds this out? Oh, I know he's going to be disappointed. We don't have to worry about that. Judah wouldn't have to worry about that. Because they realize God wins, so why am I going to fight against him? I'm just going to walk in obedience to him. Even when it's hard, I know it's best. Because you know what? At the end of the day, I'd rather have Papa smile at me than to have to worry about whether or not he's disappointed or angry. If we walk in the reality that God wins, then we have peace with God. Isn't that great? What do we like to say in our homes? If mama's not happy, nobody's happy. If God isn't happy, nobody's happy. You know how much grief is in your life because of sin? Because you know you've done wrong? Why not find peace with God? Simple question. Second thing he says in verses 18 and 19. He says, I will gather those who grieve about the appointed feast. Those who try to walk in righteousness and see your sin, I'm going to gather them together. They came from you, O Zion. These are your brothers and sisters. The reproach, the punishment of exile is a burden on them. They didn't do anything, but because of your sin, they've had to carry that burden. Behold, I'm going to deal at that time with all your oppressors. I will save the lame. I will gather the outcast. I will turn their shame into praise and renown in all of the earth. In the remainder of this book, in these last 3 chapters, God 8 times says, I will. I will. I will. When we realize that God is the victor, when we realize that he is the source of security and stability, when we come to the point of saying, you know what? Gathering the people together is God's responsibility. Taking care and saving the lame, gathering the outcast, turning shame into renown, all of that's God's responsibility. When we realize that the problems in our life have their solution in the Father and not in ourselves, we are benefited. Judah needed to come to that understanding that since God is the victor, that means, and get this, he is the solution to whatever the problem. There's one answer. I have a guy I know that I went to school with that took his comps for his PhD. And that means he's taken a test, a comprehensive test, a huge test. What if the answer to every question on that test was the same? B. B, 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 B. You might get monotonous, but sure would make studying simple, wouldn't it?